democratic institutions, a free press, freedom of expression. And we thought that looking at governance in Liberia over the years, we have a track record of always speaking out and bringing to the attention of the international community, our partners, the ills and some of the shortcomings that we see in our government. Nobody is going to do it for us. If we were to get along, to be accepted and not to, in the words of some people, cause problems, then we are accessory to misgovernance and bad governance. Our decision to write the U.S. government is more from a patriotic standpoint rather than from an opposition standpoint. Where any other government headed by any other administration, we would have spoken out, and we have a track record of speaking out on these things. And we thought that the United States has a lot of political and economic influence, and we think that they can use that leverage to kind of change the behavior of administrations in Liberia. And that's the reason why we took the opportunity to write the Biden administration to say, use whatever leverage you have, in as much as you're providing assistance to Liberia, use that leverage to change behavior so that Liberia disconnects from the cycle of economic dependence, international aid, budgetary assistance, and those kinds of things. It is about time that Liberia now begins, pursuing the path of good governance so that we can be truly a sovereign nation. And we'll be prepared to discuss this a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. I'm wondering, when you were saying that, I'm wondering, why not, ECOWAS or AU? Why the US?
Yes.
Clearly. Yeah, clearly, you've seen that ECOWAS, the Mana River Union, the continental bodies have not been proactive in dealing with member states when it comes to these issues. There may be reasons for that, but we don't think that ECOWAS and the Mana River Union and the AU have been proactive in ensuring that democratic institutions are protected, freedom of speech and expression are protected, and we have to speak up. I think that is more of a reason why we took the front page, to say, hey, we'll take the lead in speaking up, because we don't see that these continental bodies and sub-regional bodies are taking the lead in doing anything. They should be taking the lead and ensuring that these type of issues are addressed before they need to intervene and send in peacekeeping forces when instability occurs.
Let me come to you, Mr. Williams, on the same question. Well, this is a follow-up here.
Yeah.
Imara just said the regional body is not proactive in responding to anything of this nature, to paraphrase him. But Cabinet Janet went to the ECOWAS court, and the ruling was in his favor.
Yes.
So to say that the regional body is not proactive, I don't know where you're coming with that.
Yes. Yes, Cabinet Janet went to ECOWAS, and ECOWAS ruled in his favor. What has been the result from our government? Absolute disregard of that court's order. Does that not tell you that you are dealing with people who can show reckless, blatant disregard for the rule of law and established order and get away with it? They don't care. You talk about, just to piggyback on what Emmanuel said about ECOWAS, and let me just be blunt. These are not organizations. I must actually respect, and we hold the ECOWAS and the AU, the Mana River Union, as much as we hold them in very high regard, and we appreciate their contribution to the restoration of peace in our country. These are not bodies that you can rely on to deal with problems, like what's going on in Liberia until hell breaks loose. Because when you look at the culture of governance in Africa, even within our own neighborhood, it's very troubling. Look at what the unacceptable breach of democratic order that took place in Guinea. And this man was recently chairman of ECOWAS, I think chairman of OAU. You look at the blatant disregard for established order in Cote d'Ivoire. These countries are neighboring countries, and you have the blatant disregard taking place. You heard what happened in Chad, where this leader who had been in power for over 30 years dared to breach the rules, the Constitution, to continue to hold himself in power. And we hear that his own people kill him. Apparently, they got real tired. You know,
Mr. William, may I interject here?
I'm laying the premise. I'm laying the premise. I'm trying to tell you the reason why we came to the Americans. The Americans, at the end of the day, they are more involved in terms of over the years in making sure that the rule of law and tenets of democracy are adhered to in Liberia. During the years of the Samuel Doe era, during the Civil War era, the Charles Taylor era, and through up to this point, the Americans have been that beacon of hope to which rights activists, democratic activists, journalists, these are the people that will come to help us, and they have been helpful. And this is why we come to them. And this is why we didn't go to the African group, because you have an African representative who is there in Africa, the ECOWAS representative, a gentleman from Nigeria who was accused recently.
Mr. William, may I come in? You will continue. May I come in? You will continue. You're talking about the ECOWAS having representatives there.
Yes.
The U.S. also has representatives there.
Yes. Yes.
But then you are writing them letters. So what excuses you from writing the ECOWAS a letter? I mean, are you suggesting that because they are dead and you're not seeing what they're supposed to do? Hold on. So the United States that you have rating also, Mr. Williams, there is a record that the very United States government will more so do business with the regional body, especially when it comes to peace and security. Of recent, when we had the protest, the United Nations, the ECOWAS representative told Liberia was instrumental in negotiating for peaceful protests and all that. They have to work with the very Americans. So why couldn't you start with your own people and then later write the U.S. government and say, no, we dealt with ECOWAS, we dealt with AU, nothing happened, so we have come to you. Why couldn't you have taken that route?
Yes. We are encouraged by the fact that the Americans have been proactive. They are now like the African Union or the ECOWAS of this world, who wait until there's a crisis, whose leaders, whose representatives are always in bed with our government. Here is why. The Americans, after the Liberian court, just as they bungled, with the justice, associate justice, Kabina Janen's case, there's the same way they compromise the case involving the now dismissed passport director who went to court and was relieved and was set free by the court. And the Americans see the injustice that was done, considering that this man and of course the former foreign minister of Western Finley has been implicated in the sale of 4,250 passports, Liberian passports, ordinary passports, official passports, service passports, diplomatic passports. Heaven knows where those passports gone. It took the Americans, taking actions. And then we saw in the case of our renowned lawyer, Mr. Vanish Sherman, the respected and well-known senator, who there have been many issues regarding circumvention of the law. You saw the situation that involved him in circumventing the law to grant concession to compromise the concession agreements to bring money to him. So the Americans took action against Vanish Sherman. They sanctioned him. We see that they are looking at this issue and taking actions. What has the ECOWAS done? What has the OAU done? Nothing. So we're going where there we know that they're going to listen and they're going to investigate and they're going to take actions when necessary.
All right. My question here is in twofold. The first thing is, what steps have you tried? What have you tried that didn't work before taking this case to the United States? And then the second part to that is anyone listening to you now will say, but who are these gentlemen? Okay, are you are not representing the press union of Liberia. You are not representing you are just former leaders, three. Why you think anybody will listen to you? And why are you not working this through the PUL instead of just going as individuals? So that's two questions.
We're not political activists. We are former leaders of the press union. We're also citizens of Liberia. We hold a unique position when it comes to the lens through which we view the situation in Liberia. Gabriel touched on the reasons why we're approaching the U.S. government because of the confidence level that we have, and they're able to extract results from engaging in Liberia. I'll remind you that in addition to the Kabine Janet case, where the Liberian government has not responded and has thumbed its nose at the rule of law, there's also the Nancy Doe ruling from ECOWAS. That has not been honored to date. There's nearly 100 million people in the ECOWAS West, almost 100 million people, residing in the sub-region. Look at the poverty level in West Africa, and you're asking us to defend the regional bodies, including ECOWAS and the Mano River Union. We need to do better. We need to speak up. We need to pursue individuals, institutions, and countries that have the leverage to change attitude and behavior in Liberia. That's the reason we wrote the Biden administration. We've been engaged with the Biden administration. We've been engaged with the U.S. administration over the years. And we know that with their leverage, not the leverage that we have from African countries, the African countries are not issuing human rights reports. They're not holding anybody accountable. Why is that not possible? They can do it. So those individuals and those institutions, those countries that can effect change, that can change behavior, we can pursue, we can engage, and we can ask them to help. Our letter is asking for assistance to change behavior. We're not asking for sanctions. We're asking the U.S. government to engage the Liberian government. We're asking the U.S. government to, the national legislature, perhaps they need training. They need to engage with their U.S. counterparts on how laws are fashioned and things like that. We need accountability in our public sector, finance management. We're asking the U.S. government, come and help us. And in doing so, we want you to also hold people accountable.
Right.
We've seen that happen. They've come in, they've helped before. We need that help again. And I don't see anything wrong in asking for help. I don't have to go through ECOWAS, and make a case for ECOWAS. And I'm not asking for validation from anyone to speak up for people who need help in Liberia.
So the question is, what have you tried? Is this your...
You want me to come in?
We've engaged the Biden administration. We've engaged the Biden administration. We've written them a letter with some proposals.
You said, what have we done?
No, what have you tried before coming to resolve these issues before coming to the U.S.? Is this your first
Emmanuel, you want to go ahead or you want me to come in?
Let Emmanuel continue.
Look at the track record of governance in Africa. Look at the track record of governance in Africa. And if we want to be local, look at the track record of governance in Liberia. We are where we are today because of the erosion of public institutions. If you're asking us what we have tried, that will presuppose that we need to, engage the Liberian government and say, change your behavior. That hasn't happened over time. Asking the Liberian government out of goodwill to change is not going to happen. There has to be consequences. There has to be an engagement with the international community. The people who butter our bread, we need to ask them to help change the situation in Liberia. That's where we're coming from.
And Emmanuel, before Mr. Willen can come in, so what I see historically also is when citizens initiate kind of citizen action, that can call the attention of war balance, war powers like the U.S. We saw that in Cairo, Egypt. We saw that in many places where the citizens were conscientized on the issue regarding their material well-being in the country. And so the United States had to intervene. I'm saying this to ask the question, you as journalists, is it that you have exhausted your means of communicating and informing your people about the things that are happening for which now you have to go that route?
No, I think that we need to look at this in a holistic fashion. Okay. Journalists report. Mm-hmm. They set the agenda. Mm-hmm. They conscientize citizenry about their rights, mm-hmm. about governance, mm-hmm. accountability, transparency. The report from the United States State Department, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, all of those reports have their basis in the kind of reporting that they see on the international wire that journalists write about in Liberia. We're doing our part. We're not activists. Through our work as journalists, whether it's the print or broadcast media, we're letting the world know about conditions in Liberia that need to improve. Mm-hmm. And if these reports come out and mm-hmm. these reports question governance in Liberia, is because journalists have aired out these shortcomings. That is where our role is. Some of us are still practicing journalists. We still write stories, and these stories have international implication. If you look at the sources used by the U.S. State Department in its annual human rights report, a lot of those things come from the fact that media report influence, and they also help shape policy in the U.S. State Department.
Yeah,
that's
true.
Where we're coming from.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And then, if you don't mind, I wanted to ask Mr. Williams here. Mr. Williams, any history of journalists in other countries writing any war power regarding behavior of their government in seeking their help and intervention? Any history of journalists doing that in any country that you know of?
Yeah. During my leadership of the press union, I traveled to many countries around the world. I even went to Yemen, where you hear about civil war. I was in Yemen for 2 weeks, where you had a gathering of journalists, where we issued a resolution. From that resolution, certain African governments were cited for abuses, and those communications, were sent to those countries. Several countries, Gambia was one of them. In fact, the representative, the guy who was the president of the Journalism Association of Gambia, he later on was killed by the regime. It was the first and last time I saw that fellow, because and he left a few months before that happened. And so, yes, it's a history, and it's not just individual doing it. There's a collaborative effort when you are involved in the international journalism activities. And you go to these conferences. They are there to reinforce and re-empower and build network and build support for one another. And this is how, during those critical days when the press union was on its knees, when journalists were being brutalized, and some journalists have been killed, it was through those networks, through those connections, that we use to keep the press union alive, to keep independent journalism alive. They support the king. That's how the king, through the networking, through going to those people and telling them our story, that we need help, whether it is in Guinea, whether it is in the Gambia, or whether it's in Ghana, whether it's in Nigeria, the collective effort works. And this is what we've been doing.
Don't you think the Liberian people will be the better people to complain to instead of going to the U.S.? Because this will kind of play into this or nurture this idea that we have this almighty United States of America that we always run to for help. what can we mobilize our people so that we can have the people solution?
Mr. John, let me attempt to respond to the question that you're raising. The Liberian people are doing their part. The Liberian people, for whatever it's worth, are speaking up. They may not be wealthy, they may not have influence, but you have leaders who, at the risk of their professional lives and their personal lives, they're speaking up. We see some of that. Liberians are now voting. They've attempted to change the system through peaceful means. They are doing everything possible. There are gaps in our governance system that we need to improve on, and we need international help. The people who can help us, we need to go to them and ask them to help us. Liberians are helping themselves. They are voting. They're looking at individuals of integrity. We need to support that. So when you ask us to go to the Liberian people with what we're doing now, they're already doing their part. We have the good fortune of being in a place where we can influence policy internationally to change behavior. And that's what we're doing to support what Liberians are doing. Look at the elections, local elections in Liberia in the last few years, and see the sea change that is happening. People want to improve. People want a better system. People want good governance. And we can help them out from where we are in the diaspora by calling the international community's attention and asking them to support democratic institutions in Liberia.
Mr. Abalo, and quickly, so your action now, writing this letter, seeking help, how does that benefit a student in my hometown of Saston, all the way beyond Gorbak? How does that benefit the market woman in Wapley, for example?
I think that you're localizing this and you're looking for immediate results. I can tell you that from experience and from our leadership in the press union over the years, the activism that we undertook as media personnel influenced policy at the State Department level and at the US government level. And that's what we're doing. A lot of the aid that Liberia gets, that aid is influenced by US policy. When these type of interventions are made to the international community, they take into consideration the reputation of the people who are making these interventions. They're looking at the current reality in Liberia, and they're comparing our intervention against the current reality. And we don't need to tell you that we need help in Liberia when it comes to governance and when it comes to transparency, when it comes to strengthening democratic institutions and all of that. So the ordinary person in Sasstown or in Zwedru, in the long run, with good governance, they will benefit. The Press Union of Liberia, wherever it is today, has been because of the work that has been done over the years. Liberia still needs a lot of help. And if we're waiting for instant result or instant gratification, I can tell you that that is unrealistic. But this is all part of helping to influence international policies to help Liberians. We're asking for direct assistance to local organizations. Instead of directing aid through government, we're asking international partners to now condition their aid, partner with local organizations who can reach the ordinary person, the ordinary market woman who can get a microloan, the ordinary people who can benefit directly from aid rather than going through government. That is the kind of intervention we're making, and we're asking our international partners to help us with.
So I believe that this is not the first time the government has proceeded wrongly that caught your attention. What was the last thing that said, okay, now we're going to write the U.S.?
There is a plethora of instances where we've cataloged all of these things that are impacting the ordinary person. The letter is clearly a catalog of all of these things. The printing of the the agreement to go ahead and print more money without any concrete financial defenses in there. We've seen situations where ordinary, citizens are brutalized by security forces. Training, all of those things we look at, and it's just a catalog, a conglomerate, a composite of all of these things happening. And these things are happening because we don't have strong democratic institutions. So we're not picking on the government. We're saying over time, these things are becoming systemic. Let us address them. We want our international partners to help us because it doesn't appear as if the government is listening and the government is making the honest effort to resolve these issues. So there's not only one thing, Mr. Ja.
Okay. So, Mr. William, let me bring you in. So specifically now, look in the camera and tell the people listening to us, what specifically do you want the U.S. government to do?
Well, number one, we know that from the time the U.S. government came to power, Samuel Toy, the finance minister, the central bank, and all of those who are managing the economy of the country, they are not able to manage it. The whole economy is falling apart. You know, last year, things went so bad until they didn't have, bank notes, right? The country got, there was absolute shortage of cash. Most of what you had were mutilated bank notes, the tier money. Okay? So what we have proposed is that considering that after these several years of these fellows, their inability to manage the affairs of the economy, we are asking the United States and the other partners of Liberia to revisit the governance assistance and management program, governance, economic management and assistance program, GMAP. They can go back to GMAP. Of course, we know that there have been some criticism that certain things in GMAP didn't work, but let us look at the lessons learned from GMAP. Because the last time I checked, and I was at the Ministry of Information as Deputy Minister, when GMAP was in force, the economy of Liberia, and the records are there, within a few years became one of the fastest growing economies in the whole world because the GMAP system was in place where you had accountability, transparency. I, as a Deputy Minister, if I sent a voucher to the Finance Ministry for funds to undertake certain projects, I had to justify it. I had to justify what I did with the previous money that was given me.
Can I interrupt you?
Yes.
Specifically, I want you to tell me what is it that you want the U.S. government to do?
This is what I'm saying. I want the people to understand.
Okay.
They need to understand what the GMAP is. When the GMAP people come in, they brought in foreign experts. They posted there at the Finance Ministry, they put all of the Forestry Development Agency, the airport, they posted them there. And those people, they were there to make sure that every penny that was realized from government revenue were accounted for. So we need a similar system to be put back in place to ensure transparency and accountability. We want the Americans to also deny visa access to individuals in government who are declared, who are found wanting, who are found to be corrupt, They want them, to deny, their visa to come to America. And we also want anybody from the United States who is working in the Liberian government, either as a citizen or as a resident, who has bank account in America, who owns property in America, who owns businesses, whatever asset they have in America, that the Americans can investigate if there's any issue arising from those people, so that they will be able to look into it. These are measures that we have proposed.
Thank you so very much. And I was just displaying the things that you are asking for, one of which also is that the U.S. government conditioned a new economic assistance and full implementation of the recommendations contained in the final report of the TRC. Everybody been calling for this. We had the previous government in which you work, Mr. Williams, and all of the vital recommendations contained in that report. It was like, no, this is not for us. That's how the Ellen government had behaved. I know you were just a minister, and these things didn't happen, and now you are part of a team writing a letter calling for this to be done when a government in which you work could not get it done. Somebody might say, hypocrisy. Your response, sir.
Yeah, you need to tell me specifically what didn't get done, because I just told you
the true implementation
under Ellen. So
the implementation of the TRC report.
The TRC report, yes,
okay.
It wasn't done. This is why we are calling for it to continue to be implemented.
Okay.
I do not support the fact that the government could not get it done, and it is unfortunate that the government could not get it done. But it is, government is a continuing process, because a particular government could not get certain things done. And if it is an unfinished business, it is within the purview of the incoming government, especially given the priority of the situation that we're dealing with. So I am still calling that the TRC report should be dealt with. If there's a code that needs to be set up, it needs to be set up. One of the reasons why the country continues to drift into instability and people are so reckless in the governance of our country is because there's no sense of responsibility. They know that they're not going to be held liable. But if you go in there and murdering people for political office, if you go and looting the resources and you know that you're going to be accountable, it's not going to happen. The way Mr. Taylor is in jail, anybody who comes up and say he wants to be a rebel, then you know that you're also going to go to jail. So, you need that guiding post to serve that, in government, there are certain things you cannot do.
Thank you.
This is why we recommend.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Folks watching us here, focus on Liberia. Welcome. If you're just joining us, I'm Anthony C, co-hosting along with my partner, Dennis Jai. We have former leaders of the Press Union of Liberia here, represented by Mr. Emmanuel Abalo and Mr. Gabriel Williams. These are journalists in Liberia. We the young people, if I'm young, we say pen pushers. These are the guys, who have that mantle pen in their hands, and they are writing the U.S. government, calling for the U.S. government interventions in things that happen in our country that they are not satisfied with, among which is the printing of $48.7 billion. It's like, this is the one that, like, hey, this is too much now. You printed $4 billion, no result. And now another, they are not satisfied. But Emmanuel, let me come to you quickly. Writing a letter.
I wanted to follow up with Mr. Williams.
Okay, go for it, Dennis.
Yeah,
go
Mr. Williams, because election have consequences, right?
Yes.
So you work in the Salif government. You talk about the printing of money. Salif government printed money. You talk about disappearance. People disappear under Salif, including our good friend, the Honorable Harry Greaves.
Yes.
And was there anything in the Salif government that would have warranted a similar letter that you are now writing against the WIA government?
Well, if the government, they conducted an investigation, if the circumstances warranted it, where the government was insensitive and reckless to the point where we are right now, clearly other citizens, it was within their purview to write the government. There is a free country. The fact that it was not done yesterday doesn't mean that I cannot do it now when I see that problem. So, this is where we are. If the problem existed, the politics or the government is an ongoing process. Yes, there were inadequacies in the past government.
What I'm asking is, if you look back now, did you find anything for which a similar letter should have been written or could have been written?
I think something like the TRC, citizens could have risen up, or a group of citizens could have gotten together and written the United States government, and I know many people did. There were concerns raised that the Liberian government needs to pay attention. America, yes, you are our most important bilateral partner. Reconciliation, is critical for the country to move forward. The TRC is a lifeblood of the whole process. The government has been negligent, or they've been holding back in having the TRC recommendation, implemented. We would like your intervention to compel the government to have the TRC recommendation, implemented. That would have been done. But it's still, even though it was not done, that still doesn't stop us from bringing it forward.
Let me jump in real quick. Yeah, let me jump in real quick. Yeah, just a comment on what Mr. Williams said. I think we want to be very careful here and indicate that Mr. Williams is not here, as to defend the administration he worked for. Mr. Williams, he can do that if he wants. I think we have to be careful not to equivocate. Oh, because it happened during the Ellen time and nobody said anything. Why are you guys, saying something now? Because it's a new administration in. We have a duty, and if you look at international reports on Liberia, international financial reports, international human rights reports on Liberia, past administrations, all of these issues that we're discussing, that you're asking whether these things have been discussed prior to now, all of these things are contained in these international reports, human rights reports, financial reports, and it's getting worse. So it is not that people are, if people are writing letters, they activate, they've been activists and asking the international community. This is not the big. We're not the first. All of the things, they end up in some report that is usually published, and we all see them. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf also had challenges, and reports came out. She was criticized for not implementing the TRC report, heavily criticized by international rights groups, by the State Department, by the European Union, and all of that. They hold the TRC report as the yardstick for addressing impunity in Liberia. And so this is not a situation where we want to equivocate and say, you know what, because you worked in the government before, these things did not happen. Why would you now want to criticize the new government? We have indications that these things have persistently been discussed, they've been brought up, and government has not shown the will to address these things, whether it was the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration, whether it was the Samuel Doe administration, Charles Taylor, or even now.
Thank you, Mr. Abalo, and I like your answer. What you're saying is because it happened yesterday, whether or not those things were addressed, shouldn't be any reason for us not to act now. I get that, and I think that is reasonable. But let's come to your F. Now you have written this letter. The Biden administration, I'm sure, might have received it now. You also send it to the speaker. You send it to the Senate Majority Leader. Then you send it to Chris Smith, who is a committee member, I understand, on rights issue. They might have received the letter, I will assume. That's it? Or are there follow-up steps or efforts that you can show the listeners that, hey, we're not just writing a letter and just go to bed. We're going to follow up. So what will be those follow-up steps, and how can you be sure that they're going to act on this letter?
Certainly. Thank you for the question. So the ultimate goal here is to change behavior, national governance improvement, and all of that. These letters have gone to people who we think are influential and who can influence policy, who can make policy, who can make budgetary, decisions, who can implement these decisions. From the State Department, they have the USAID arm. We're hoping that this letter will form part of whatever decision they're reaching. If the State Department wants to have a conversation regarding this, we're certainly open to doing that. We're doing our part. We ask everyone who is interested in seeing Liberia become the city, the shining city on the hill, to be a part of this effort. We're doing our part. We're looking at individuals who we think can influence policy, who can make budgetary allocations. And we can follow up and do all what we can do. And hopefully that will bring some benefit for Liberia.
Thank you. Let me follow up on the question I asked earlier. Your response is not because it happened on an airline, we shouldn't act now. That was not my question. My question is because there is a pattern, there is a history of people speaking out only when they are not in government. There was this Nigerian joke where this guy used to really be very open criticizing the government, and then when he was in government, he was talking low. So when they asked him, he said, "It is not good manners to talk loud while you are eating." So the question is a fair question, Mr. Gabriel William. You were in government; these things were happening. You didn't write a letter, so it's fair to say that are you only writing a letter, or are you only engaged because you are not in government? That's the basis of the question.
Yes, let me answer that question with your preface, which is which comes with the Nigerian parable. Here is the deal. When you're in government, what did you do? What happened? And you didn't say anything. I'll give you an example.
Right.
And I will give you a media example being a journalist. When I was at the Ministry of Information as Deputy Minister, the minister, Dr. Larry Brooklet, arbitrarily shut down the independent newspaper, for publishing an article that was in violation of the law. As Deputy Minister for Public Affairs, is a technical person responsible for the overall media activities of the country, I advised the minister that the decision was against the Constitution. It was arbitrary, it was extrajudicial. If the government saw any reason to be aggrieved by this publication, indicating, showing that this man had violated the law, we should go to court. He didn't do that. He relied on the PRC decree recreating the Ministry of Information during the PRC time, which is there that, as a minister or whatever, the government can shut down the newspaper, they can ban journalists from publishing. When that decision was taken, the press union and other international organizations, they protested. I'm sure you may be aware. I went to the President Sirleaf, a couple of days after, sought an audience with the president and expressed to her that this decision was against the Constitution, and it was contrary to anything. And I gave her an example. I said, when Charles Taylor and Samuel Doe were doing the same thing, arbitrarily shutting down newspaper, we were the ones, and you were one of those leading the charge, calling such an action arbitrary, extrajudicial. When we are doing the same thing as in the case of the shutting down of this newspaper, what do you think people are going to say? The president said, yes, I got you. And the president was able to change that decision.
Thank you.
Where I have responsibility to influence positive decision, I did. I was not involved with all of the decisions in the government. As Emmanuel said, I am not here to speak for that government, but where it informs the media, where it informs this example that I gave you, at the Ministry of Information, not a single journalist can tell you that the 4 years that I stayed at that ministry, as assistant minister and as deputy minister, that I did anything contrary to the promotion of press freedom, to the promotion of enhancing journalism in Liberia. If anything, that is the most important thing.
Thank you. So my question now is, what are your next steps? Just in case for some weird reason, the U.S. government pays you no mind.
Well, just as Emmanuel said, and at the risk of repeating what he said, it is not about U.S. paying us mind. Trust me. If anybody thinks that what we have written, nobody paying us mind, they are living on a different planet. They don't know what time of the day it is. If you're in Liberia, wherever you are, you better wake up. And I take you back. The Charles Taylor people used to do the same thing. You used to say the same thing. They call us names. I could not even travel to Liberia throughout Charles Taylor era, and I didn't care. We were determined that this ruthless foe who has taken over our country would do everything. He either reform and conform to democratic governance, or he should leave. And we did whatever we could to bring Mr. Taylor to book. So I don't care what they say. Like Emmanuel said, we are not necessarily waiting for a response from those people. But one thing we know is that somebody will listen to what we are saying. What we are saying makes sense. So, and you're going to see in the fullness of time that those things that we have put forward, they are good.
Mr. John, let me jump in real quick. A good question you asked. And again, it comes to this whole idea that when you make these interventions, people want to see results. It is a fair expectation. Let me just indicate this: Mr. Williams has a right to serve in government. If he's asked as a public servant to serve in his government, he has a right to do so. If Mr. Williams makes private interventions to his bosses without publishing, because this is how government works, he doesn't need to publish it. And Mr. Williams did indicate that he's made several private interventions to his bosses at the time. And he made the decision to serve in government. How bad is that? You know, there is this tendency for some Liberians to tarnish the reputation of individuals and, ascribe all kinds of intentions to them, that they're looking for a job, they're looking for brown envelopes and things like that. It is their right to do so. But good people who want to see the ordinary Liberian see prosperity and improve, they don't need validation from people who just want to tear down their reputation. So the U.S. government, we've written them, we've told them, we've offered our, proposals. Let's see what happens. I don't expect that they're going to call me to the State Department tomorrow. They're going to call us to the State Department tomorrow and be like, yeah, we're going to take action. We know, we have a network of people who we interact with. These things make their way to influential people in Congress and the administration. And we're hoping that the letter and the propositions that we've made will make sense to these individuals, and budgetary allocation and foreign policy will be influenced in some way. Let's hope that decision will impact the ordinary Liberian.
Thank you. And gentlemen, we will soon be reading some comments and bring in our viewers here through calls. I want to bring this question to the both of you attention. You are a journalist, and we've seen your work. You have contributed. What I'm asking here is, why not a documentary? Because in the things that you are reporting the government on or highlighting, you talk about the printing of the billions. You talk about the debts. Why not a documentary capturing how the printing of money and mismanagement has been done in Liberia? Something that could go viral. Why not a documentary on the debts that we're talking about, the auditors, the Mason boys, even going as far as Matthew Innes, all these debts, at least a documentary or an investigative report or a dossier, and release it, and it goes, why? And now the big power can pick up that and say, Lord, this is serious. Why not?
Mr. Sia, I think that it is a matter of it's a matter of choice when it comes to how we approach this.
Okay.
We're not in the business of drama. The Liberian media is replete with all of these instances that we catalog.
Okay.
The local diplomatic corps is well aware. They've made private representations to the government repeatedly. Some of those private interventions have made it to, the public. We've seen that. And so our letter to the State Department is simply a catalog of things that they already know. The United States has a local embassy in Monrovia. The embassy reports to Washington before 3 o'clock every day on what is happening in Liberia. A documentary would be more for entertainment purpose, but I do understand where you're coming from. That with something like that, it will go viral and it will capture more eyes, it will capture more ears. But we think that this is a serious matter. And if we document this and send it in a letter to the administration, the State Department, we think that this, and then share that with people in Congress, we think that will carry more weight.
Mr. Balo, the More Than Me documentary was not for entertainment.
That was just in jest. Understood.
Okay. Ladies and
Mr.
gentlemen,
William?
if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. We are in discussion with two former leaders of the Press Union of Liberia discussing their letter to the Biden administration calling the Liberian government to book. What else you see going on in Liberia that you are not satisfied with, that you think needs the attention of the international community?
We think that there's a lot when it comes to the functioning of the three branches of the Liberian government. The three branches of the Liberian government, clearly there's some dysfunction there. Either some of the managers in these three branches don't understand what their constitutional obligations are, or they are incompetent, or both. As a result, we have a dysfunctional governance system in the country. The courts in Liberia need reform. It appears that the Chief Justice is unable to undertake that reform, and it boggles my mind as to why this hasn't happened. Can you imagine that the United States government had to hold people locally accountable through international designation to send a message that your courts need reform? So judicial reform needs to be addressed. We certainly will hope that this is an opportunity for the Liberian government to ask for assistance. Help train our jurists, help train our lawyers, help train our legislators on how to make laws, help train our legislators how to understand the Constitution, undertake programs where we can exchange legislators, they can come and see how the American system works, and things like that.
Thank you.
Why are we not reaching out and asking for that help for the three branches of government? This is where all of these problems come about. If we don't have lawyers, if we don't have the judiciary interpreting the laws, and they're kicking people out of the legislature because they didn't like what somebody said, and in so doing, disenfranchise a particular group of people whose representative was kicked out, and the court had to intervene in that matter. In the first place, how does the legislature arrive at such a decision without even taking into consideration that if we undertake this act, we'll be disenfranchising an entire group of people because their representative says something that we don't like? So there's a lot of gaps in all three branches of government. Security, we need help. The government has to come asking and be honest in implementing these things.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's what we're asking for.
Thank you. We're now bringing some comments from our viewers. Please take your pen, jot them down, so we use 5 minutes to read our comments and you can respond. Cole Moba say, hi, my boss man, Mr. William.
Oh, hi, Cole. How you doing?
We say you guys have no impact in the lives of Liberians. And Eric Talus said, nothing going to stop the Liberian government from printing the money. Again, Bese say, what are some of your contributions that you guys have made to change the lives of the poor people in Liberia? Somebody always asking for help. The U.S. government had nothing to do with the printing of money in Liberia, guys, probably. Miriam Rabo say, why are you people talking about printing money, printing new money? About printing new money, end of the day, they will. In other words, we are wasting our time, they will still print the money. Arthur Freeman, the situation in Liberia under George Weah is complete moral hazard because this government is done care one. Or does not. Most of the leadership political, corrupt, and morally bankrupt. We have our friend here, said Solomani Goli. I'm watching from Bokondre government camp, Sino County. That's the place I used to take rice to sell as a child. So a few more comments here.
Yeah, this one then is from Emmanuel Uje Dekie. This intervention is a complete tabata. We will look it at the lobbyist level.
Sam Wallow said United States government is actively engaged with the Republic of Liberia as an active partner in tourism effort launched yesterday. So I don't know the basis of that. Keller Sarah, that's Sekou Keller, he said, why petition a foreign government against your state? All countries have challenges and citizens have the right to use every legal means to force their government into action without being unpatriotic. Welcome, Africa, Mr. William. You guys are just doing what all it takes to tarnish the reputation of this one George Maniwea government to the international stage as an opposition. But here you are saying you have been in Yemen and the Yemen journalists have reported his or her country to the international world. So he said, I should ask you to name the Yemen news network in Yemen. Agatha Sele Gabriel will agree that Amil was in country during that time, so a lot of free money was invested in Liberia. These are things that people continue to say. Emmanuel Saka said, they are all carrying water for Ellen Johnson for 12 years and saw nothing wrong. Were more radio stations now closed under Ellen? These are a few. Let me read the last question here, and then we can. William Green say we are dealing with a broken system, and somebody say you guys want work in government. That's not strange, but these are a few of the comments. Your response.
And Dennis, before the gentleman can respond, we want to announce to our audience the phone line is set for you. We set up the phone line already. So if you want to call, load in the strolling text below. The calling option is right there for you to call and ask these gentlemen whatever question you may have as well. Thank you. Gentlemen, you can go ahead and respond.
Manuel, you want to take
I'll start off by saying that some of the comments are comical and some of them are personal, but it is what it is. And let me just say this, that every Liberian has a right to work in government. Working in government is not a crime. And I would challenge some of the writers to post on here any charge against our integrity as individuals or as former leaders of the press union for which we need to hang our heads in shame. I would challenge them to post that. But other than that, I can understand the frustration that some people have. This is, regardless of what we do, is going to be discussed and looked at from a political point of view, and we understand that. Gabriel?
Yes, all I can say is basically, just to piggyback on what Emmanuel said, people are entitled to their opinions. I serve in government and I serve with integrity. I did my best. One of the reasons why I am so fully charged for us to push this cause is, to work so hard to try to bring change in the country and to see the gains, whatever were the mistakes, the challenges we had. The gains that were made, all of these gains are being eroded. I am personally committed, no matter what, to ensuring that by God's grace, our country is going to be put back on the right course. It has nothing to do with government job. I was never working for government before Madam Ellen Johnson asked me to go and serve in her government. I am back in private service, and I am going to continue to advocate as a journalist for what is right for our country. So no matter what people say or what they do, that's no problem. The issue here is they need to be focused on the $48 billion that is being printed, for which I'm not sure whether it is part of the discussion you guys are going to come up with. We have not discussed about this money. If you look at what Mr. Weah and his government did with their candidates in the December 2011, where there was no money in the country. The United States government even issued an alert that they didn't have cash in the country. But government candidates, ruling party candidates, and government officials have fresh banknotes circulating it around. We have the repeat of this situation coming in 2023, where this $48 billion that have been printed. These fellows are going to infuse this money on the market to try to buy this, the election for Mr. Weah re-election. This is the concern we are expressing. We know that a lot of people are going to come up and try to attack us. We know that this is the reality of Liberia, and we are prepared. I am prepared to continue to draw attention that this money they are rushing to get this money printed to fund Mr. Weah re-election. And the Liberian people need to wake up. They need to wake up to make sure that this does not happen.
Mr. Williams, somebody may be saying, where is the evidence?
Where is the evidence? I just gave you an example of what happened with the $4 billion. Let them bring you, information from how the $4 billion was expended. Let them tell you where they got the fresh, newly printed banknotes that were being circulated by ruling party candidates and government officials when there was social tier money on the market, when even the American government issued an alert that there was no cash in the country. Where did they get the money from? Then I will give you evidence that as to why they intend to do with the $8 billion.
Mr. Abalo, quickly get to on the same printing money. This number is big. 48. When I look at what is in circulation and what they're trying to print, it's almost like double. So I just curious, why are your major concerns and fears what you think is going to happen for which because I saw some emphasis on this printing of the money. What are the things you are fearing?
We're very concerned about the track record of government when it comes to financial management in Liberia. A good indicator of that was the audit that was done of the National Bank by Kroll. Mm-hmm. We got that report indicating the lapses in the management of the finances of government. We don't have any assurance that those recommendations that were advanced by Kroll, the auditing company, and by Ernst and Young have been implemented. We don't have any indication, any study done by the Liberian government on how they intend to manage such a huge amount of money when it's printed. First of all, if all we do is to print money when we run out of money, if that is the solution to our economic problems, then everybody in Liberia can buy a photocopy machine and print money if they need it. We are challenging the government to be serious about financial management because it impacts the economy. It impacts you and myself because we have to now take care of people in Liberia who cannot survive in the economy in which they're in. So we don't have any indication that government has, developed strong financial systems to ably manage the financial system in the country. And they're in the process of printing money to address the shortage of banknotes. And there is the potential for things to go wrong. And let me remind you that while we're discussing this, the national legislature is having second thoughts about approving the stimulus package. There were no financial defenses set up. There was no system set up to audit and to carefully manage that stimulus plan. Now, there seems to be some problems with the way that stimulus package was implemented, and they think that something went wrong. And if we're talking about the stimulus package, I think $25 million, and they can't account for most of that money, let alone $48 million printed money, getting into the hands where the National Bank has no systems. They're charging people and releasing them without any charge, with any conviction, because they were accused of stealing money from the National Bank. And you're asking us about why are we concerned about the $48 million? We have no confidence that that money will be managed properly. We're very concerned about that. Every Liberian needs to be concerned about that because the economy in Liberia is, equal to a secondary economy where we're almost at the stage of bartering. That's how bad the economy has become. And everything in the country has become very, very unaffordable across the board in the health sector, infrastructure, job creation. All of these things suffer when you have financial mismanagement. So we're very concerned.
Thank you. Normally, when you are doing something or saying something like the way you gentlemen are saying now, the question people always ask is, what are they doing in Liberia? What are some of your fingerprints? What are the work you were doing? But I will put it a little differently. As journalists, especially veteran journalists and former leaders of the PUL, and also members, if not founders of the of ALJA, that's the Association of Liberian Journalists in the United States, what have been your work with the Press Union of Liberia? Like, for instance, when the elections are coming, we don't see debates for candidates, presidential and legislative candidates being organized. We think PUL should be able to take up that mantle. We also see that in the United States, where all these former journalists, veteran ones, ALJA has almost died a natural death. So what are you guys doing also to be able to make an impact both in Liberia and here as journalists before you're talking what other people call this big talk?
Man, you want me to come in or you?
Yeah, Mr. Wallen, you
Yeah,
take
go
it
ahead,
here.
Gabriel.
Let me come in. Well, what have we done in Liberia? As we keep saying, we have always spoken out on issues, even when I was in government. Emmanuel Abalo and Isaac Bantu always issue statements during the Ellen Sirleaf time, drawing attention to things that were happening that we wish they beg to differ. Okay, and so it's a continual process. From in my situation on an individual because they want to know. Right now, I am personally invested in the Liberian press. The Inquirer newspaper, most people don't know that I am the chairman of the board of shareholders of the Inquirer. I am involved with the management of that entity day to day to day. The Inquirer newspaper headed by Philip Wieser. Philip Wieser, succeeded me. Philip and I went to school. We were students at D12. Let me just take you back to tell you that there are people who have long-term relationship and credibility is important. Philip was my senior at D12 High School. He was we were in the press club together. When he was editor-in-chief of the press club, I was the deputy editor. Philip graduated before me. I graduated a year after him. But I was fortunate to start a journalism training in service program at Daily Observer. And while at Daily Observer, this is why, through that effort, I brought Philip in because Mr. Bell wanted to have a correspondent for New Town. And to make long matter short, Philip at the Inquirer, we are involved practically on a day-to-day from the budget to all the financial crisis, leadership crisis, everything that people is going through, even where Mr. Wieser is ill right now, and we pray to God for his recovery, as he is in Ghana. Just less than an hour before we came on air, I had a report from a video. We had someone in the hospital where he is in Ghana, where I've had an opportunity to have first-hand information about his activities from the time he was at the airport to where he is now at the hospital about an hour ago. I'm aware of his activities. So yes, we are invested in the process of the press, and over time we continue to issue statements. So these are the things we can do to provide. They say you put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
So we have put our money there. My lifeblood is there. I'm invested there. I don't have my family necessarily working there, but there are many Liberians who work at the Inquirer. The Inquirer has been one of the major institutions, a historic institution that stood supreme during the years of war to ensure the obtainance of press freedom. So yes, this is something that we're still committed to.
Thank you.
Let me come in. Thank you, Gabriel. And just to piggyback on what Gabriel said, Gabriel is creating jobs in Liberia. Some of these individuals who are questioning his integrity, he's creating jobs in the private sector for journalists, training journalists in Liberia. We've worked with the National Endowment for Democracy when we were leaders in the press union. You know, the press union now has a new leadership. It doesn't augur well to interfere with the present leadership. They have their programs they're going to undertake. If there are private meetings and private discussions we hold with the press union, we don't want to be in the forefront. Allow the press union, allow Alja to undertake their programs because it is them today. We want to give them the opportunity. In the meantime, in our private capacities, we continue to advocate for good governance in Liberia. We continue to speak up. We continue to write. We continue to report. I think there's some, those are all contributions. Create jobs. The Inquirer newspaper, because not everybody can work in government. I think those are things that you can count as our contribution. So for people who are asking, what have you done to impact the ordinary person's lives? The fact that you can, see us and read our reports, which are credible, which are taken into, consideration by international, consumers. I think that's important.
Right. And I read your report. I even read some of you, listen to some of your commentaries that you're doing. Thank you. I think we have a caller on the line. Call out your name and where you calling from.
Caller, go ahead. Mr. Keta,
yes.
Go ahead, sir. We can hear you now.
Okay, thank you so much. I listened to one of the your guests on the studio, and I'd like to point out something. As a Liberian, that experienced some very sad situation in our country came out, and I'm here sitting in America trying to put my life together, and I hear like US in the diaspora or wherever they are continue to spill out false information about our country. I think it's sad. I heard one of your guests on the show saying that $25 million that was used to do food distribution is not accounted for. I think it's wrong. When you listen to the Senate hearing, it didn't say $25 million. It said the processes in the distribution of food were not transparent, and they wanted check and balance on that. That's the reason why they called the chairman to come and explain. And the chairman did explain. As a matter of fact, the money did not even land in Liberian government hands. It came from the donors straight to World Food Program. And they were the ones who put, and they had a committee. They had a committee set up to go about doing it. It is good for us to hold government to fire, but it's bad for us to come and lie about things that are not there. The truth is there. Let us be fair to our country. We all want the best for Liberia, but we should not do that with lies. It's sad. It's sad. And people that are educated, we are asked to educate our fellow Liberians who are unfortunate to get the kind of education that we have. But when we sit down and continue to lie and we get into power, we're not even delivering the things that the people that we say will do for the people, then it bothers me. That's the reason why I will tell against most of our organizations that brought here. Because they are full of deception. And this is bad for our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keta.
Gentlemen,
can I come in?
Yeah, please respond.
Yeah, let me just let this gentleman know, if you want to go back home, nobody's stopping you. You must be living on another world. People like those, I understand that you may not agree with our position. I also understand that there are some Liberians, there are some people, they are like the proverbial ostrich that sticks its head in the sand and refuses to see the obvious. The $25 million, yes, in our presentation to the United States government, we said that in 2019, the official government general audit in the GSC, they issue an audit report indicating that $25 million that the government claimed to have used to map up excess Liberian dollar on the market could not be accounted for. Okay, $25 million, US million dollars. Is that lie? What makes it a lie? And the records are there. The GSC audit, The finance minister is still in office. Many of those who were found culpable are still in position. And as Emmanuel indicated earlier, the companies, the agencies that did the audit and the investigation, they found major flaws in the system. So what are you talking about? You guys are the ones who were the same apologists. From the door time, you had Taylor and his group, and when Taylor got in jail, they all moved so Taylor couldn't listen. You people, if you cannot help us, get out of the way. Follow or get out of the way. The country is sinking. The $25 million we didn't create it. It is an audit from the General Auditing Commission, GSC, 2019 report. So go back there and learn. So you are the one who are misinformed, not us.
Thank you.
Imara, you want
No,
to respond?
I wouldn't respond. I wouldn't respond to the gentleman. I'll pass.
All right. Then I'll come in here with this. Emmanuel, I've read your reporting all the time. I've read Mr. Williams' work also. Those are contributions to our country. I know you write as an individual, but the fact that you are a Liberian, you are representing Liberia, and that is a contribution. You both have written books as well. That's contribution. I think all Liberians will celebrate that or be happy with that. But as journalists, Dennis asked you guys about AJA. I'm bringing this in because for me now, in my capacity, I'm coming to this and I see that this is a noble contribution. You have been there. You have the experience and the training. Any plan on your mind while you are in the U.S., how you can help to more other Liberians so that when you are gone tomorrow, they will be able to pick up the baton. And another question I want to bring back then asked was the issue of debate. I'm a big fan of presidential debates, and not only president debate as a whole. I would love to see the Press Union of Liberia organizing beforehand, looking at the time for elections, that the candidates will come and debate. I think will help to produce the best candidates, if not better candidates. Is that something I will urge you to really look in that and see how you can work with the Press Union? The Press Union should be the one doing this thing. We need that. I think such a platform or opportunity will only produce the best and maybe throw away the garbage.
Anthony, you're right. And I fully subscribe to your views and I support everything that you and Mr. Ja are doing to keep journalism alive. When it comes to ALJA, it was interesting to know I was one of the founding members back in 1992 when we went to Washington, D.C., along with Gabriel, myself, and a few others. When we started ALJA, we had a plan, we had a focus in place. And internal politicking kind of wrecked that plan initially. And for some of us, we decided that it was not worth the effort to continue to associate with an organization where internal politicking has destroyed the image of the organization. Because it got to the point where the internal politicking got on the World Wide Web. People were throwing, invectives at each other, and our sponsors and our partners at the National Endowment for Democracy saw those things, and they wondered whether Liberian journalists in the U.S. were prepared to be real journalists. And it kind of left a bad taste in the mouth of some of us. And since we walked away, we made a personal decision. I made a personal decision not to say anything bad about ALJA. I support, what they're trying to do. I support what Mr. Sandy has done. I support the new administration. They've been doing a lot of work. They've been speaking up. They've been supporting local journalists back in Liberia, and I encourage them to continue to do that. If I can help in any way, I'll do that. When it comes to the debate back home, I certainly agree that we should scrutinize our public servants, but it's a two-way street, though. If we work with the Press Union and we set up this platform and we agree that the people who want to serve in government, in public service, need to appear. They need to appear. You can't have a debate. One person doesn't debate himself. And the flavor in the country has been that people just don't care about showing up because they think it's it's a trap to get them. But we now know that debate kind of fleshes out the programs, the policies that people want to implement. And it clearly defines who the candidates are. If people don't show up for debate, Liberians need to understand that if somebody doesn't show up for debate, he's not going to show up for work. So I fully agree with you, Gabriel.
Or they don't have anything to offer.
Thank you. And
exactly.
And if you agree, gentlemen, we want to invite you back so we'll talk about that, because in the absence of credible journalism, you see what's happening in social media.
Yes.
People, pretending to be journalists, and the result we got is not pretty. But mind you, people are listening to them, and they are swaying a lot of people. So we need voices. But we'll call you back so we can talk about journalism. Tonight, later tonight, you're going to have a show. We're going to have Mr. George P. Lobo coming to talk to Anthony Sear, because Anthony made a show about the VP's budget, and Mr. Lobo is not satisfied with that, so he's coming to clarify. You don't want to miss it. It's at 9 o'clock. Tomorrow, 6 p.m., we're going to have young Tene B. Dalier, a PhD student in Dublin City University, appearing here to talk about universal jurisdictions as a mechanism in the Liberian transitional justice process. On Wednesday, we're going to have a candidate of the United Bond County Association in the Americas, Mr. Kamon Joe Colley, coming here to talk about his platform, his vision for the organization as they gear up for their elections, 2021 election. You sure don't want to miss it, because here at Focus on Liberia, we educate, we elevate all things Liberia. The diversity of our programs make you wonder how the guys do it, but we are here. Keep supporting us and keep listening to us. Now, gentlemen, we're about to draw down the curtains, but not until we get your closing statements.
Gabriel, you want to go ahead?
No, go ahead, Emmanuel.
I
want to thank.
Thank you.
Yes, I want to thank the host, Mr. Dennis Jah and Anthony Sear. Let me personally applaud you both. We've picked up your platform. You've been doing a heck of a job getting information out, very credible information with guests, and you've been intrusive in your questioning of your guests. And I want to thank you for promoting journalism. You're on the right path. I want to continue to, encourage you to do that. At the end of the day, some of us don't need a government job, and every Liberian has a right to work in government. Reputation is very important. And what we're doing from the position in which we find ourselves is for the ordinary Liberians. It is not about an opposition to any government. It is about good governance, because we live in a society where we know the benefits of good government, and we want that for our people. We hope that people will see it that way, and not to narrow their focus on the hard-hitting, charge that we've laid, all for good governance. So we just hope that Liberia tomorrow will become a better country if Liberians continue to hold their public servants accountable, if Liberians will vote based on the issues, and if Liberians will vet their public servants before they vote for them. Liberia is bigger than any one of us, and that's the reason we're doing this. So again, thank you to our host.
Thank you.
Mr. Williams?
Yes, Anthony, and you guys, I want to tell you guys, thank you so much for having us, Emmanuel on this program today. And you, Anthony and Dennis, you guys have, wow. I watch your programs all the time, and you, as Emmanuel said, you're doing very well.
Thank you.
Keep it up. But let me just, my parting statement is, there's been this issue of where you work in government. Every time someone like me wants to say something, there will be people saying, well, you are bitter because you lost your job or because they fired you. But here is the deal. I wrote a book and I knew all of the situations that will happen. That with the publication of this book, I will lose our job. And I did it. It was the ultimate sacrifice for the country. And people say, well, you had a lucrative job in Washington, D.C. Where? 2 times. The people almost, I got eviction notice. Court eviction notice to get me out of my apartment. Many times the president had to be personally involved to get money for me. Money to pay my rent and to meet salary arrears. My family joint account that my wife and I put together that I used to put money to fund my daughter going to college because she graduated from the University of California at UC Davis. I depleted that simply because of this situation, okay? And I stayed at that job in Washington because of the confidence President Selby had in me and the opportunity to serve my country, given the responsibility. Even to leave from here to go to Monrovia, I didn't request for it. They sent for me. I initially said I didn't want to go to Liberia because I got real sick with the way Liberians do things, all this politicking. I'm just saying this to say that I am singularly focused that we are going to get Liberia back on the course Kanwa made through the democratic process. We are going to continue to knock on the doors of the Americans that we did. And you see my fingers, I'm saying it with all the emphasis. We are going to continue to knock on the doors of the Americans, and we know that some way, somehow they will hear us, just like they did during the Charles Taylor time. I don't care what anybody say. I don't care what they do in Monrovia. If Mr. Weah, all we want from Mr. Weah is for him to reform, allow for accountability, allow for good governance, allow for the rule of law, respect for press freedom. If Mr. Weah doesn't do it, we and him are on opposite pole, and we are going to make sure that he and the people he had surrounding him making decisions in Liberia, we are determined to make sure that they account for everything that their tenure in Liberia. We are determined. The same way we didn't rest until we contributed in whatever way we could to make sure that Mr. Taylor is contained because he was not the best leader for Liberia. If Mr. Weah continues on this path of destroying our country, we are determined to make sure that we put an end to it by drawing attention to the Americans, and we will not rest until they get their attention. So I want to thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so very much for accepting our invitation to be here and explain the letter that you've written. We enjoyed the exchange, and we're looking forward to having you both back here on Focus on Liberia. On that note, I'm going to pass it on to my man Anthony to close us.
Dennis, thank you, and gentlemen. Again, we want to say thank you so very much for honoring our invitation. Thank you for your contribution to our community. And we also want to say a big thank you to our listeners. Dennis told you, George Preston Lobo will be here 9 p.m. Eastern Time. I did a program about the Bwaka's budget. Lobo, a son of Bwaka, is not certified. There you see him smiling. He was like, how dare you talk about my political godfather's budget? And he's saying all the things I said were not correct. So he's coming to set the record straight. And I'm saying to him, you better be ready. I did my homework. We will be here 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and you do not want to miss it. This is how we'll come to the end of the broadcast here at Focus on Liberia, where we always educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. But before we do, there is a song that says, we are all Liberians, and that song is taking us home. Bye-bye, and we love you all.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home. Liberia people. Liberia. Liberia.